She's a doctor.
Hi, I'm Dr. Dovek, and she's a dietitian.
Hey, I'm Hannah Schuyler, and together we are
the Doctor Dietitian Collab. And Happy New Year! 2023!
That's fireworks, guys.
It is fireworks because that is about to be the new year. 2023 is going to be your year.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
2023. Starting off with a fantastic honeymoon to Italy.
Ooh.
Going in January. I'm so
Ooh la
excited.
la. When is the date of that?
Mid-January.
Oh,
Yeah.
fabulous. Fabulous.
So, very looking forward to that.
Yes, I know. What else are you looking forward to in 2023?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, so much things. We're going to look at, I don't even know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know. There's so
It's just, I'm like in next phases of my life.
I know.
So.
I love a new year. Actually, this might be my favorite time.
I like the New Year holiday. It's very neutral to everything.
It is neutral to everything because there's no religious preference or cultural
no weird,
norms.
American history attached to it.
That's true.
It's just like a new year.
It's a new year and everybody celebrates it. I always love watching all the different celebrations from all across the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually going to Australia in the new year.
What?
Yup.
For New Year's?
I'm going there. No, I'm going there in February.
Okay.
Yeah, they actually the Australian bariatric surgeons invited me, so I'm going. I know it's for work. I'm very important.
You are very important.
Oh my goodness.
Well, speaking of very important things,
heck yeah, let's get back on track.
Into it.
Oh my gosh! Without further ado, this 4-part series of this medical weight loss, this is the one I think has the most excitement around it.
It really does because it is it's emerging. Some of this stuff I know has been around for a little while, but lately this has been in the headlines. It's been in the news. It's been top of mind. There's been new development. And what we're talking about is injectable weight loss medications.
Yes, the injectables. And some people, I think, fear oh, I don't want to stick myself with a needle for the rest of my life or for how long, the foreseeable future. And this is another one I revealed in the last episode that my husband was on phentermine. So we talked about the pill episode in episode 2 here of this 4-part series. And he's now currently on one of the injectables, Wegovy.
Yeah.
And it is going fabulous.
It's
I mean, that's why I'm so excited to tell all of our patients and all of the potential patients who might be, maybe you didn't have bariatric surgery and you just stumbled upon this podcast because we're talking about this super hot topic. And to start us off, do you think Kim Kardashian is taking
I thought it was one of the sisters. I don't know all their names. Chloe?
What?
Or I know
all
their
of a
names.
Sudden, oh my gosh, you guys.
I don't know which one is which.
Hannah and I are breaking up. This is our first point of contention.
All right, bye. See ya.
Oh my gosh.
I don't keep up with the Kardashians.
I keep up with them the mostest.
No. I mean, I did just see a video of Kim and she was looking skinny. Yes. But I feel I heard that it's Chloe is the one
think they're
that's
both
rumored.
on it.
Probably both, but that was the first one. Elon Musk is on Wegovy. Somebody asked him. Yeah, I saw it. I think this was even before he bought Twitter, but on Twitter he said, somebody asked oh, you're looking so good. How'd you do it? And he was fasting in one tweet, and then the next one was and Wegovy. It's maybe should have led with that one, bud, because let's be real about what's causing your weight loss. It's the Wegovy.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, this is a quick side note, and we talk a lot about, surgery and the stigma and around that. And then these people, famous or infamous, maybe in Elon Musk nowadays with the Twitter scandal and all that. But do you feel it's out there. It's a physical thing. You can see it. He struggled with his weight. He's on this medication. Why do you feel like they have a social responsibility to explain to their fans and to the people who use their kind of platform to get it out there?
Oh, absolutely, I do, and especially not in maybe because I don't follow him, especially Elon Musk. I didn't realize he had lost weight or anything, but the Kardashians in particular, because of their platform is based basically on how they look. And a lot of people think that they diet and exercise to look that way. And the reality is they don't. They have doctors and surgeons that make them look that way. And so, yes, I do think it comes up to them because people are going to try to live up to these unrealistic standards that they are presenting as, oh, we just, I I shake my salad or whatever.
Oh my God.
Like,
So you do watch them if you know that.
I just like all the memes. I'm here for a Kardashian meme.
I know. That's the sign of a true friend. I love it when Hannah will send me like a little meme over my way.
Yeah.
You need to do it more.
GIF.
A little GIF. I love a good GIF. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, let's dive in here and let's talk again just to refresh everyone's memory. Who qualifies for medical weight loss? It is anybody whose BMI, again, you can Google BMI calculator, is between 27 and 29.9 with issues or comorbidities related to weight, such as diabetes, sleep apnea, heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. You would qualify. Or if your BMI is greater than 30, you qualify based on your BMI alone. Now, these injectables, again, they're popular amongst the celebrities. They are really popular, I feel like, in our little bariatric community, too. I see a lot of people posting about, it's day 7 for me of Mounjaro. It is day, 15 for me for Wegovy. And you see them kind of showing that I'm using this because I was kind of stuck or I was having a little bit of weight regain.
Right. And I think that's where it comes into people who are influencing even on a smaller scale to say, look, I'm not doing this. I'm using another tool. And again, kind of destigmatizing bariatric surgery as a tool, destigmatizing weight loss medications as a tool. And also one more thing to always come back to, this is not intended to be medical advice.
Yes.
If you are having any concerns or want to talk to these, please talk to your specific provider. They can help guide you. Look for a bariatrician if you don't have somebody that supports you. And in a case of an emergency, always call 911.
There you go. She nailed it there with that. But we're going to tell you a little bit more about the pharmacokinetics. I mean, come on. Let's get crazy.
Talk nerdy to
Oh,
me.
yes. So we're going to start off and we're going to talk about the GLP-1s. GLP-1s, these are medications that have traditionally been used to help with really just with diabetes control. And the GLP-1, what's it stand for? It stands for glucagon-like peptide. And an agonist essentially means that it will kind of mimic it or it will kind of like multiply
Increase
it.
as
Increase
opposed
its effects.
to an antagonist, which would
Exactly.
limit it.
Exactly. Like there's antidotes, there's antagonists, that's the opposite of the effect. And this is like a direct relationship. It will directly increase that level. So glucagon-like peptide, essentially these things work in a whole host of different ways in the body. And we're going to kind of break it down. And again, they have traditionally been looking at like diabetes type drugs, like again, insulin sensitivity improvement. In other words, it'll improve your blood sugar control. And then they realized that, if we really put on a higher dose, and it's all about the dosing, we're going to talk a little bit about that, you can get some weight loss.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start off and talk about GLP-1. And then there's also some medications that work in additional ways to GLP-1, and that's the very, very popular Mounjaro.
Yes, because that is a GIP antagonist?
Yes. So that one
and GLP agonist.
Yes. And so it has the GLP-1, and that is what makes it the most efficacious in terms of weight loss that we have ever seen in any weight loss medication. And that one is by Lilly. Mm-hmm. So there's different drug manufacturers. Yes, I don't know how to say it, and I'm kind of embarrassed by that. So I think it's Mounjaro first off, and I think that's the brand name. So sorry if you're like, that's not how you say it. Can we go like right into the Dr. X Dietitian podcast? Like they're getting on my nerves with our mispronunciations of these. But the generic of it is tirzepatide. Mm-hmm. How did that sound? Tirzepatide?
Sounded good to me.
Now, they have, and if you really want to read it, and actually I would suggest this because in medicine, sort of the pinnacle of publication and research and all of that is the New England Journal of Medicine. Mm-hmm. And they were published a few months ago. I believe it was like in the early summer when they came out, and they, Lilly had published their results on a very, very, very well done study, which was prospective and blinded, and they compared it to the control of a placebo, and they looked at the different doses and how things went out, and it was called the SURMOUNT trial, the Surmount study. And the gist of it, actually, even the name of the study showed that it achieved between a 16 and 22.5% weight loss in adults.
Wild.
That's wild. That is insane.
Yeah.
That's insane results. And since it's so fairly new, this is something that Wegovy did as well, which is Novo Nordisk is the drug manufacturer there. To kind of get it onto the scene, these drug manufacturers essentially were like, all right, well, we're going to give out like rebates and coupons.
Yeah.
Where you can get this medication for like $25 a month.
Yeah.
And the problem with that actually came down to it was being used off-label. And that there's actually, I belong to a lot of, this is so dorky, but like there's like support groups for bariatric patients, and there's actually support groups for bariatrician or obesity medicine physicians. I've been in one for years.
That's awesome.
It is so awesome. There's over 4,000 physicians or providers in this support group. And it is a safe place where they like really vet you. So like if some of you are like, I'm going to try to join one of these and like, let me get this, they'll like really vet you to see if like you should be in there or not. But there is so much information shared by these other providers. And it's also in episode 4, we're going to go there of this 4-part series where they give like a lot of tips and tricks about like how do we prescribe this? How do we dose this? What is our anecdotal evidence? What's the actual evidence? What is the way that we can navigate the insurance and these rebates and making it so that it's, cost, you're able to do
not
it.
Cost prohibitive, because we're not all Elon Musk.
No.
He can just pay the $1,600 a month.
Why didn't he, instead of buying Twitter, in all seriousness, like why didn't he wouldn't it be so much better if he helped, think about what you could do with, how many billions did he buy Twitter for?
I have no idea.
I mean, crazy.
there's so many things he could have done better than buy Twitter.
I know.
I'm not going to sit and pretend I understand what is going on in Elon Musk's head.
Okay. Well, I was hoping he would help us out with some GLP-1 agonists.
Yeah, come on, Elon.
So the thing about, back to the Mounjaro, is that a lot of the pharmacies now, because weight loss was an off-label prescription for it.
It still is.
Yes. And so it's supposed to be a type 2 diabetic medication.
Right.
And so that part of the evaluation, you'll have a thorough lab workup to see if you have insulin resistance or if you have diabetes, which is defined as having a higher glucose or fasting blood sugar level, or having a hemoglobin A1C, which is a 3-month kind of snapshot, be higher than about 6, and then you would be able to start the treatment. So if you don't have that official diagnosis, then they're not allowing you to fill the prescription with these saving cards now, which is really
becoming a really big challenge. Yeah.
I know. And not just that, supply and demand. The demand for it was so explosive, so fast. 22% weight loss is just insane.
It is.
So now it's just super frustrating for the patients who are suffering with obesity and or the ones that got started with it, and now there's not enough supply, and so they're not able to continue it.
Right. And then you also have people who can pay for it out of pocket that are able to just get it, even if maybe they don't technically qualify. They may not actually meet those standards, or they're very much on the low end and don't need that much weight loss. Did Kim K really need to lose 16 to 22% of her weight?
I don't think so, but she did.
But so let's backtrack.
We're going all over the place.
It's really easy to get into it because it is really frustrating as providers and as people who are involved in this world when you are seeing those issues. So I think it's really easy for us to start to be like, I'm so annoyed and blah, blah, blah.
That's
but
true.
Let's back it up.
Let's
go back.
So, okay, let's talk about how this works.
GLP-1.
Let's start there.
We're going to raise. So these medications, they are generally a weekly injectable.
Exactly.
And you're going to, it's like a pen. So it's not like drawing up insulin. You don't do needles. It's a pen, and you click the button on the end. Mm-hmm. And so you don't really even see the needle.
You don't see it. Nope. It kind of goes in and out, and you don't see it. And it's a very, very small little needle that goes right into the subcutaneous tissue. So that's just the superficial part of your skin. Mm-hmm. So it is an injectable, nothing to fear. It won't hurt. Don't think about like your days as a child, not wanting to get shots and all of that. Yeah. It's not a big intramuscular by any means. And again, these things have been around forever in helping with insulin resistance and diabetes. So some of them you may know, like Trulicity. Mm-hmm. That is a GLP-1 agonist. You have your Ozempic, which is also a weekly injection. Victoza and Saxenda, these are daily injections. And there's some other ones that I actually never really heard of and I really can't even pronounce, but they're all in this same sort of family. And so let's start off with how it helps to really get your blood sugar levels going down. So it works in the pancreas. So the pancreas is the organ that helps to, it has beta cells, and these beta cells will actually secrete and make insulin. And so when you eat something that's high in sugar, or it needs, to basically get rid of the blood sugar, insulin comes onto the scene, and it's what will automatically get rid of that. Now, sometimes there's a resistance to your insulin. So you need like more insulin, and then you have your blood sugar levels aren't being taken care of. And so therefore you have this increase and then, insulin resistance or diabetes.
Yeah. I always I remember learning about insulin early on, and it's like a key. So like your cells need a key to let the blood sugar in, and that insulin is the key. And then if they're insulin resistant, it's like your key is like bent. So you need more keys to get in to kind of overcome that.
I really, really like that. So it will increase your insulin secretion. And there's the key, and it's going to help it with that. Now, it helps to decrease glucagon secretion. Okay. So that's a good thing because glucagon is sort of like it does like gluconeogenesis. In other words, it helps to increase your glucose levels. All right, the dork side out. I think I'm so cool and so fun, but I'm in the biggest. I'm in gluconeogenesis. Does everybody know? And then
it's weirdly making me want to go back to my nutrition bio class that I took in college. I want to go back and relearn this stuff, which is weird.
No.
I want graphs right now. I want pictures.
Well, hey, drxdietitian.com, my friend, let's make these graphics and let's do it in a very cute hot pink kind of Dr. X dietitian way that actually kind of covers up that there's a lot of really good information on there. So, and it also, these beta cells that make the insulin, this GLP-1 actually helps to increase the beta cell survival. So there is this, it just helps your body function better. And that's the key thing is getting rid of your circulating blood glucose levels. Now in the liver, another very important organ for a whole host of things, but it also is very important in blood sugar regulation. It is causing that this whole thing about decreasing the glucagon secretion and this decreasing of the gluconeogenesis essentially means that there's not going to be an increased production of additional glucose, which is great.
Right.
Because it also will help to decrease steatosis, which is fatty liver.
Oh.
So fatty liver, all of these things are hand in hand. And this GLP-1 is like the bomb. It's like the jam. You want more GLP-1. And the most amazing thing is that after the bariatric surgery, particularly the gastric bypass especially, and even the sleeve, you're going to see a 10-time higher increase rate of GLP-1. Naturally after that. Just by having the surgery.
And that's why you see that oftentimes kind of resolution of that type 2 diabetes.
Exactly. It's almost instantaneous that your body is almost naturally becoming one of these injectable GLP-1 agonists, because that's what it's doing is GLP-1 is increased tenfold.
Right.
And that's how you walk out of the hospital after bariatric surgery, again, especially after the gastric bypass, with improved or completely resolved insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes, to the point where 98% of our type 2 diabetics are completely off of these medications immediately after surgery. Instantaneously.
Yeah.
It's so wild. And there's so much science as to there's so much obesity research and even even the metabolic impact of bariatric surgery. When I was at Vanderbilt, there was a whole lab. It was one of the world's most foremost experts on this whole phenomenon, and they would do gastric bypasses on rats. And we would see okay, what's going on here with these hormones, the GLP-1, the insulin, all this stuff. And ultimately, the truth was still, after all this, we just don't really know why bariatric surgery, I know I'm getting off topic, will help to increase that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to kind of talk about that because I think a lot of times people get so concerned about medications because it's like this foreign thing, or it's this like lab created thing, or it's this, but it's like you're giving yourself more of a hormone that you already naturally produce. Similar to, insulin. It's something our bodies produce. We're going to give it more when it needs it.
Right.
And so I think that's kind of interesting that we're showing that these medications can have a similar effect in that uptake. That's something that would happen to your body with surgery as well.
Exactly. And so again, if you're somebody that are like, man, I'm a diabetic. Yeah, I know Trulicity all too well. I was constantly weekly giving myself these injections of this stuff and I didn't lose any weight, or I did initially, but it didn't really do much. The game has changed. The game has changed after surgery, in that you naturally now, like you just said, have more GLP-1, and now you're going to add an additional agonist. And so it's going to, I just think, multiply or exponentially help the impact. And and there are some studies that show already this. They already prove that after bariatric surgery, you are more effective with these medications. So that's great news.
Yeah.
Great news for our patients. And I'm sure like many of you right now are like, how do I get my hands on this medication? This is amazing. So it does some other things too. So actually, even at the muscle level, it will increase your insulin sensitivity.
Okay.
Even there as well.
So your keys work better.
Keys are working better. The glucose is being uptick better. It is improving that even at the muscle level. Now, how does it help with weight loss? Like, all right, I got it, you guys. Got it. Blood sugar levels down, much better for all of that. And some patients still struggle with some level of, insulin resistance or whatnot after surgery. Now, the intestines and the stomach, so the good old GI tract again, this GLP-1 works to slow the gastric emptying, slow the transit, slow gastrointestinal motility, which is really great for weight loss. But that is also, a quick side note, some of the potential side effects to this.
Constipation.
Oh, yeah.
Our old friend.
Our old friend is back again. Now, not only that, but if something's just sitting in your stomach, so again, I think this is great. If you listen to the Phentermine and the pill talk, I talk a little bit about the pouch reset and the idea that these medications can help give you more satiety, fullness. If things are sitting there in your little thumb-sized pouch or in your little sleeve stomach, you're like, okay, I feel full, I feel satisfied, I'm not hungry, all that appetite suppression. But it can also give you the biggest side effect with this, which is nausea and potentially even vomiting. And so that's something like even metformin. These can be really hard to handle because it is, first of all, it's messing with your blood sugar a little bit. And if you think about it, all right, like some of us already have some like weird swings in the blood sugar. Sometimes we're really sensitive to this. You might even get some hypo or low blood sugar hypoglycemia, for example. And so that thing's sitting there, the slow movement, the constipation, all of those things can make you a little bit nauseous.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, looking at the brain, this is where really, really, finally to answer the question here, is that it will, you just are not hungry. You just cannot eat the same amount.
Well, and I know somebody that's on one of these medications and have had conversations with them, and they said, I always had this like nagging thought in the back of my head about food, and it was like beyond just like, oh, what are we going to have? I need to plan to know what we're going to have for dinner tonight. So I'm thinking about it in that way, but it's like just constantly thinking, okay, what are we going to eat next? And then breakfast tomorrow, and then this, and then that. And then like, I want to make sure I get everything that I can and whatever. And they started on this medication and they were like, that voice just like quieted down. And they were just like, oh, I am not so focused on that anymore. I can still plan, what are we going to have for dinner tonight? But it's not, my mind is just available for other things.
Exactly. And, there's so many different like gut hormones. And there's also one that we've talked about before is called ghrelin. And ghrelin is like that hunger hormone that tells your brain that you're hungry, like you're describing, like to eat more, eat more, eat more, eat more. And there is evidence actually that this GLP-1 interacts with the ghrelin and leptin. So ghrelin is the one that if it's high, it kind of naggingly sends a brain your signal. So ghrelin is kind of removed when you remove the portion of the stomach that's making the ghrelin with the sleeve, or bypassing the portion that's with in the bypass stomach with the gastric bypass. And so by having this, lower ghrelin, higher GLP-1, leptin is another one. This whole combination of all these things actually will induce that satiation, that satisfying, that decrease in those obsessive nagging thoughts. Which, it can just be so much.
And getting, from what I understand about this, is like getting the insulin levels to the right level, because then you're not actually causing hypoglycemia, like reactive to like an overproduction of insulin. Then you end up with this hypoglycemia, and then you feel hungry again because your body is like, I'm low blood sugar, I need to eat. And that was something else that was explained to me by somebody, like, that it's that kind of roller coaster that you go on, and this helps just to like stabilize that.
That's such a great point, that you're not having these wild swings in glucose.
Yeah.
Which plays such a huge role in, again, like you just said, like I'm super hungry, and then you eat something, and it's like that's constantly snacking, picking, grazing, which we know is not a great way to eat. So you eat something, you're satisfied until the next meal. And it really helps you to stay onto that track and stay compliant. It also works to decrease sort of like this reward behavior in your brain. So sometimes, there's lots of things that show different people of different sizes. They do MRIs as you're eating and different things, and they can see like when you eat things, like where does the brain light up? And this is showing that those things that like, oh my God, like for me, it's, whatever, like ice cream or something. Yeah, I know, back to the cherry Coke thing. And that's why I got to stay away from it, because it just starts to do that reward behavior. Like I want that, so I get that feeling, and then you just keep chasing that feeling, that addiction, that all of that. And so that is also another benefit of GLP-1. Like I'm a huge fan of GLP-1.
I can tell.
Totally.
This is also so interesting to me because, again, we've kind of touched on it in all this whole series and just in general that, when we talk about people who struggle with obesity and maybe they have a sibling that doesn't, or maybe their partner doesn't, and they don't understand, like, why are you always thinking about these things? And it's because we have different reward systems in our brain, and there's different pathways in the brain that, like, you hear people that talk about, like, oh, I don't really care about food. I don't understand that. Like, to me, I care deeply about food. And, it presents in different ways for different people, but I like, when you talk about the brain lighting up and stuff like that, it's like, well, that's why different people struggle with these things when other people don't, And so then when we can kind of trick those or trip those wires or, fix the issue, it really can help for those people.
Totally. So there's also in that we talked a little bit about how these things work, and there's always the brain and all these things. Let's go back to the side effects, the nausea, the slow increase in dosing. And this is part of the whole supply and demand issue, is that it's a very slow up titration on this.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to talk first about Wegovy. And Wegovy is a medication. It's also known as semaglutide. By the way, this is a quick side note. These are injections, as we've already said. Now, there has been some talk about compounded semaglutide. But there is, this is very, 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 very questionable. It violates evidence-based practice. To basically, you can go to compounding pharmacies, and so essentially semaglutide it's a patented molecule.
Right.
And this authentic semaglutide is only available from Novo Nordisk.
Okay.
They're the one that did that. And only they make it, and they have affirmed, and they don't sell that to anybody. So this whole compounded pharmacy, there's been some buzz on this, so I just want to address this whole thing that people are basically there's like some questionable manufacturing standards. So essentially, some other things are proposing that they're synthesizing or they're making this molecule, but there's a lot of product-to-product consistency. You don't really know. It's against this patent. Compounding pharmacies or facilities, basically they can take things and make it into like a cream form or like, like I can't swallow this, I need a liquid or what other forms. They're not required to actually adhere to certain standards.
Oh, interesting.
So like pharmaceuticals, but not like compounded products, must maintain such standards so that the finished product is performing as advertised. Like, essentially it's consistent with the published evidence that you take this, 16 to 22% of you would establish this. But we need to trust, as a provider, as a clinician, that basically what you're getting is what you're getting. And that's why, just so that you know that we feel like it's deceitful to essentially at this point go for a compounded semaglutide. So if you've seen that, like I'm just saying that I wouldn't go there, and I just hope that that's helpful to you. If you're like, oh, maybe I can get this. It's sort of like you're desperate almost, like
a knockoff version.
It's a knockoff version in a different form.
Stick with like knockoff handbags,
not your knockoff medications. Yeah. Exactly. And
ibuprofen, get that one generic. It's fine.
Yes, we can do that. That's better than
this is different than a generic. I guess that's the thing. This is not like this is something that people are doing and it's sketchy. Exactly.
And also the way that it comes in terms of sketchy or not sketchy, there's certain you can order stuff you can get stuff from Amazon Pharmacy now. I mean, obviously, right. and get mail order, and it comes. It has to come refrigerated or on some dry ice, I guess, or whatever. But if it comes completely frozen, don't use that.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, don't use that. So that can be kind of tricky. So if they live in a cold climate and it's already kind of on ice to protect it, that can be really tough there. But anyway, so to go back to the dosing of this, looking at month 1, weeks 1 through 4, you're only at 0.25 milligrams. And you've already said, they come in these pens. Yeah. So it's not like you can take a pill and cut it in half or anything like that. So the hard thing is that month 1 is 0.25 milligram injection. Month 2 for the whole weeks 5 through 8 is 0.5. Then month 3 is 1 milligram. Then month 4 is 1.7. And then finally, month 5 is 2.4. Okay. Which is much, much higher for these weight loss dosages, are much higher than the dosages for diabetes, actually.
So that's kind of the difference, because maybe I think we've mentioned it, but some of these meds that we mentioned already are technically just for diabetes, and then they're used off-label for weight loss. And then the Wegovy, though, is just a weight loss medication, correct? It's not used for diabetes management.
Exactly. So it's kind of the same stuff, but the dosing is different. This is Wegovy, to my knowledge, was the first injectable GLP-1 that had the FDA approved. And I think it's still the only one, because Mounjaro is not it.
Mounjaro is not FDA approved for weight loss.
For weight loss. Yet. But they're doing clinical trials, phase 3 clinical trials, and they're looking for recruits. I just saw this online. So, maybe some of you out there can call the number and say, so wait a second here. Let me get this stuff straight. You're going to actually give this to me for free. And so if you want to, so Eli Lilly is conducting phase 3 clinical trials and are currently recruiting. You must be age 40 or greater, with a BMI of at least 27, of course, with the risk factors. You can call 877-285-4559 if interested, but note that you may also be in the placebo group.
Right. That's the risk you're taking.
That is the risk you're taking. But if you're that's interesting. So we'll put that on our podcast episode to show that as well. So again, the problem is with month 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you can't divide the doses. There's been a shortage of the lower dose. So you can't even get started. Or we don't have any of the 1.7s at month 4. So we can't start you if we don't have all 5 dosages out there.
Lined up for you.
It is crazy how quickly they have really kind of sold out.
Well, they have, and then there was a big supply chain issue too. They couldn't manufacture it, I feel at some point. So it was that, and it became really popular. And like you said, it's the only FDA approved one. So for insurance companies, like they're not always going to approve things that are off label.
Exactly. And that's tough. And I think that goes back, and we'll talk a lot about this in the next episode, to these providers. Not like, I don't even want to play there. Like, I don't know what's FDA approved, what's not FDA approved, and I want to put my patients, I don't want to like prescribe something. Like the Wegovy is, if it's not covered by insurance, so you're not opting into an anti-obesity medicine coverage on the insurance plan, the Wegovy can be upwards of like $1,400 to $1,500 a month.
Yeah.
So that's the hardest thing. It's like, man, this thing is like a miracle drug, but the thing costs so much.
It's just, it's prohibitive.
It is, totally. So we talked about the GLP-1, and as we've already mentioned, this Mounjaro, it's also a GLP-1 receptor agonist. But as you mentioned, it is also it has the addition of the GIP, and that stands for glucose-dependent insulinotropic polypeptide.
Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, not even happening. And so this is essentially, so it activates the receptors for both the GIP and the GLP-1, which are just naturally working to even basically the GLP-1 stuff, both of these two things together do like the same stuff. So it's really, really good. So this is also a titrated dose, and I really would suggest that you guys all look at the SURMOUNT study's results. Before you go on a medication, just the more you know, the more you learn about this, probably the better here. But the average weight loss with these different medications versus placebo, this is wild. So 5 milligrams, which is the very low dose.
Right.
Average body weight loss, 15%. The 10 milligram was 19.5%. The 15 milligram was 21% compared to the placebo, which was 3%.
Wow.
I mean, that's incredible.
So, I mean, think about, again, like if we look at numbers, say you have somebody that's 250 pounds, to lose 20% of your weight, that's 50 pounds.
That's incredible. That's insane.
That's amazing.
It's so amazing.
And this is over, does it say the amount of time?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know how quickly they achieved this.
Right.
Let's look to see how long they were following these people before they drew that conclusion here. And so they also, this is interesting too. So the amount of people who actually had greater than 25%, which is like astronomical, greater than 25% body weight reduction, which again, 200 pounds is, like you said, over 50 pounds here. And is for 5 milligrams was 15% of them. For 10 milligrams was 32%. For 15 milligrams was 36%. Almost, 1 in 3 people, more than that, who were taking 15 milligrams achieved greater than 25% body weight loss compared to only 1.5% of the placebo. Which is great. And then finally, if you're looking at waist circumference size, which is another big thing. We've talked a lot about how your body distributes the weight and where your fat is stored, if it's more peripheral or in your hips and your thighs, is it more central, which is the more dangerous type. So waist circumference is a really good marker of metabolic health. Mm-hmm. And of course, that central apple shape, visceral adiposity is the worst. And when you look there, you'll actually see that there was, for the 5 milligram dose, was 14 centimeter waist circumference decrease.
Which is 5.5 inches.
Oh, thank you for looking that up. I was wondering, 5.5 inches? That's wild. Think about belt sizes. 5.5 inches, we talk about that, and that helps a lot. It's 17.7 centimeters for the 10 milligram dose, and then 18.5 centimeters lost in your waist circumference, that dangerous visceral adiposity, compared to just a 4 centimeter loss with the placebo group.
So that's like 7 and a little over 7 inches versus 3 centimeters is 1 inch. Basically.
That's crazy. So it's sort of like, all right, these things work really, really well. Now, the thing about this Mounjaro in some of the studies is that there are, they didn't really look at the impact on the pancreas. So if you have a history of pancreatitis, they didn't tease that out yet with Mounjaro, but that is something that is a relative contraindication with the Wegovy, for example. Like if you have pancreatitis history and inflammation of the pancreas, which could be due to numerous causes. It can be due to excessive alcohol use. It could be due to gallstone pancreatitis. It could be from hypertriglyceridemia, a familial or genetic component to that. So there's a lot of reasons why you could have that. So it's not not been studied on those patients yet. Now, there's also some talk about thyroid cancer. And so that is the ability for, there's a certain type. So there's like MEN2 syndrome where if you have that and that's associated with a certain type of thyroid cancer because of the C cells of the thyroid, then you could actually have an increased risk there.
Okay.
So MEN2 thyroid or syndrome, let me look that up and just make sure I can tell you exactly the type of thyroid. It's medullary thyroid cancer.
Okay.
It's a very, very rare genetic disorder that affects essentially the endocrine glands, and it can cause tumors in that thyroid gland. And also with that syndrome, there's also involvement in the parathyroid and the adrenal glands. But because of these medications, the GLP-1 agonistic effect, you could have an increased risk of developing that medullary thyroid cancer.
Got it.
So it's something that you'd have to be very careful with there. So there's multitudes of physicians that prescribe these meds, and we are going to talk about that in the next episode. Mm-hmm. Finally, we're going to talk about how you can get your paws on some of these things and get going.
And, again, we talked mostly on Wegovy and Mounjaro, but there's, again, definitely other ones that people are using off-label for those. So you may hear your doctor may say some different ones. So just know that that's different. When we talk about prescribing things, there may be some different routes that doctors are going to take just to get you something.
Exactly.
And keep your eyes out because, like you said, we're getting phase 3 trials to get this covered for weight loss specific. We're not doing it. The drug companies are doing it.
In all of our free time, Hannah, you're not doing phase 3 clinical trials looking at a double-blinded, placebo-controlled, randomized study?
I make no money from Eli Lilly. So,
oh, my God, I know. You would think Novo and Eli Lilly are going to be like, man, again, this is our second sponsorship to the podcast here.
People would call us names, I think, if we had those as sponsors. I think we're neutral on
We're very neutral. We're just trying to tell you a little bit about where they work, the dosing, the potential side effects, and then in the next episode, we're going to talk about how you can be diagnosed, be evaluated, and a little bit more about just, how do you navigate the payers, the insurance, your employer, opting into benefits, the unions. There's a lot of ways you can go for it.
Yeah. So thank you all so much, as always, for listening. Check us out at drxdietitian.com and on Instagram at drxdietitian. And we, again, are so thankful for you all. And Happy New Year.
Yes.
We will see you in 2023.
Wow. Yes. Yes. Happy New Year, my friends.
Happy
2023.
New Year. See you next time.
Bye, everyone.